Thank you, Madam Chair. Since this is the first time that SPREP has taken the floor in this committee, we wish to express our gratitude to the Government of South Africa and to you, Madam Chair, for your skillful handling of the complex discussions. SPREP is the intergovernmental organisation with the mandate for environmental management in the Pacific Islands, representing 16 countries, 4 territories and 5 metropolitan members. The SPREP region covers over 10% of the planet's oceans, and 97% of this vast area is contained within our members' EEZs. The conservation of threatened and migratory species and supporting sustainable development are both at the core of SPREP's mission. It is our privilege to support our Pacific Island members, Fiji, Samoa and Palau, who are all co-sponsors for both this and the proposal to list thresher sharks. Distinguished delegates, as noted by Australia, sharks feature in the cultures and legends of the Pacific Islands, and in many places they are considered taboo or sacred. Several of our members have declared their EEZs as shark sanctuaries. For example, the Micronesian Shark Sanctuary, linking the EEZs of Palau, Marshall Islands and the Federated States of Micronesia, covers an area the size of Europe. Besides their spiritual significance, however, sharks have also become valuable visitor attractions for many of SPREP's members, bringing in tens of millions of tourist dollars annually, most notably in Fiji, French Polynesia and Palau. As Australia also noted, the Pacific Islands tuna fishery is the world's largest, and many of SPREP's member countries depend heavily on the access fees paid by foreign fishing vessels to fish in their waters. However, not only tuna are targeted. Until very recently, many longline vessels specifically targeted sharks through shark lines set in shallow waters of the open ocean. We are grateful to New Zealand for their concise analysis of the available fisheries data as it pertains to the Pacific Islands region. The current level of fishing mortality for silky sharks is more than 4 times higher than the sustainable level, and silky sharks in the Pacific Islands region are now at a level of less than 28% of their virgin biomass, which would seem to point very clearly to a listing on CITES. The recent and rapid declines in the populations of silky and thresher sharks in our region have not been driven by Pacific Islanders, and the main markets for shark products are outside the region. Like climate change impacts, Pacific Island countries are not contributing to the problem, but are bearing most of the cost. This COP provides an opportunity for delegates to show their support for the Pacific Islands and to vote in favour of an Appendix II listing for silky and thresher sharks. We believe that the science is clear, the need is urgent, and the solution is in your hands. SPREP urges you all to vote in favour of this proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, SPREP. And then the final word will go to the Southeast Asian Fisheries Development Centre.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since this is the first subject intervention, I would like to thank the people and government of the Republic of South Africa for excellent arrangement of the meeting. To congratulate you and on your chair on this meeting. SIPDEC has actively worked on shark in Southeast Asian region for almost a decade in collaboration with institutions at regional and international organizations, which aim to improve data collection and understand the stock status in order to conserve and manage within the region. SIPDEC would like to reaffirm again the result from the 5th Advisory Panel for the assessment to amend Appendix 1 and 2 of CITES concerning commercially exploited aquatic species, in which clearly states that both the status of both silky shark and treasure shark are not meet the Appendix 2 listing criteria. With regard to the silky shark, SIPDEC believes that listing shark into the Appendix 2 would not be a good one, into the account that many regional fishery management organizations have been actively worked on this species. In addition, listing of silky shark in CITES Appendix II would have negative impact to the percent fishery due to the high mortality of silky shark, and it might not be possible for all personnel to comply with the regulation of CITES once this species is listed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Southeast Asian Fisheries Development Centre. I think we have allocated a significant amount of time discussing this proposal, and as I have continually pointed out, we have a very limited amount of time left. So I do not intend to prolong the discussion on this proposal anymore, and I intend to put it to a vote. I note that there was a request from Japan for this to be a secret ballot. So the first thing I will do is open the request there and see if have the 10 other support their request for a secret. If you can push your button and indicate so now. That's okay. We have over the 10. You can stop now. Thank you. So, if everyone can prepare themselves for a vote, please. Yes, and I will stress that as this is a secret ballot, we will use the same procedure as we did for the last proposal. So we will ask the EU to, they have their ballot paper ready already, I see, but I will just read out for the technician. I will set up the remainder of the vote. So, technicians, this is a vote for proposal number 42. The European Union and its member states are not participating in this vote. The voting type is by a secret ballot. And since this is a vote on a proposal for amendment of Appendix 1 or 2, the decision will be adopted by a 2/3 majority. So to be clear, a yes vote means that you are supporting the inclusion of the silky shark in Appendix 2, and I note this was with a 12-month delay in implementation, as outlined by the co-proponents. So if you vote no, you are voting against this inclusion, the inclusion of this species in Appendix 2. And if you abstain. So if the technicians can indicate when they're ready to run the vote, please. Super, thank you. So the vote will be open for 30 seconds. And the vote is open now. Okay, apologies. We were just adding in the EU's 28 votes into the result here, but I can confirm that the proposal was accepted even without the EU's vote. So could you please display this up on the... So adding the EU into this vote would bring it to 111. Yes, so it was accepted. Okay, thank you very much. I think we will move quickly now into proposal number 43, which is the thresher sharks and the inclusion of this genus into Appendix 2. Again, I will remind everyone that we have very limited time and a lot to get through. I will just inform you, if you are not aware, that we must get through the agenda today because we are back in plenary tomorrow. So there is no hope of extraordinary plenary meetings or extra committee one meetings. So I seek your indulgence in pushing forward with this to get through this agenda as quickly as possible. So with that, I will give the floor to, again, we have a number of co-proponents. I would like perhaps to give the floor to some opponents who did not speak to the proposal. So I will give it to the Philippines first. Philippines, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Philippines supports the inclusion of all three species of treasure shark, namely Piasopes seleucus, vulpinus, and pelagicus in Appendix II. Treasure shark, particularly Alpias pelagicus, are the main feature of scuba diving tourism in Malapascua Island in the province of Cebu in the Philippines. This is the only place in the world so far where treasure shark can be seen nearly every day. Tourism contributes up to 80% of the municipality's income, largely anchored on treasure shark's presence, providing countless livelihoods to the island and spilling over to neighboring. The Philippines is to the Convention of Migratory Species, Memorandum of Agreement on Conservation of Migratory Sharks, where all three species of treasure sharks are covered under Appendix II since 2014. The Philippines shows the world that treasure sharks are worth more than that. By voting yes, treasure sharks. We vote yes to the future of this island and its people. We therefore call on neighboring countries to join us and support this proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Philippines. And I will give the floor to the European Union next, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The European Union is grateful to the Republic of Sri Lanka for presenting a proposal to include treasure sharks in Appendix II of the Convention, and I trust that you, Madam Chair, will give Sri Lanka an opportunity to speak on this proposal as well. We are honored to be a co-author of the listing proposal together with 23 other parties. The European Union has been supportive of shark conservation and management for many years. We pursue a policy on sharks, including via the EU Action Plan on Sharks, which has been in place since 2009, and via the EU Shark Finning Prohibition. The Union notes that considerable work has been done in recent years to build capacity for the implementation of CITES with regard to marine species. We are pleased to see that the EU-funded project on strengthening capacity in developing countries for implementing CITES regulations for commercially exploited aquatic species has contributed to facilitate the implementation of these listings. The implementation of sharks and raised CITES listings is an important matter to the EU, and we are now looking into the development of a second phase of this program, including to support developing countries in adding marine species listings that may be adopted at COP17. We trust also that the non-detriment findings guidance developed by Germany has supported scientific authorities in making non-detriment findings. For an example of a draft NDF for silky shark stocks in the Indian Ocean can be found in information document number 85. We hope this will support implementation in the region. Recognizing declining catches and the threat posed by unmanaged fisheries to treasure shark, 3 out of the 5 tuna O's have already taken action to restrict catches of these species. We trust, we have agreed with co-proponents that the implementation of this listing by 12 months will enable the parties to prepare its implementation. We believe that listing of treasure sharks in Appendix II will prove as an effective instrument to ensure that international trade in the species is not detrimental to its wild populations. Therefore, we strongly invite parties to support this proposal. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, European Union. And of course, I just noticed that the Philippines was not actually a co-proponent, so I will give the floor to Panama first and then Senegal. Panama.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Panamá es uno de los países coproponentes para incluir a las 3 especies de tiburón zorro en el apéndice 2 de CITES, considerando que estas especies altamente migratorias ya están incluidas en nuestro Plan Nacional de Conservación de lasmobranquios y están clasificados como vulnerables por la UICN debido a la disminución observada de sus poblaciones a nivel global a consecuencia de una presión pesquera indiscriminada. Panamá considera que las iniciativas nacionales tienen que ser reforzadas a través de la regulación del comercio internacional, fortaleciendo la capacidad de Panamá y otros países para combatir el comercio insostenible. En consecuencia, partes de la Convención de las Naciones Unidas del Derecho del Mar que urge a la conservación de especies altamente por parte de las naciones pesqueras, Panamá apoya enfáticamente la inclusión de los tiburones zorro en el apéndice 2, felicitando al autor de la propuesta y los demás países acompañantes por el esfuerzo realizado y esperando contar con el apoyo del resto de las partes. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much, Panama. And next we will have Senegal.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Le Sénégal est co-auteur et voudrait dire à travers son intervention les raisons pour lesquelles nous soutenons la proposition. 2013, il y a eu un certain nombre de requins et raies qui étaient inscrits. Et comme nous l'avons toujours dit, l'inscription, ça n'est une chose, mais la mise en œuvre en est une autre. Et le Sénégal est parvenu avec ses partenaires à de très bons résultats dans la mise en œuvre des espèces qui étaient inscrites en 2013. J'ai écouté avec beaucoup d'intérêt certains partis sur la première proposition qui tentaient de déformer les conclusions de la FAO. Je tiens à les répéter. La FAO a relevé un certain nombre d'insuffisances, mais dans ses conclusions, elle a bien dit l'inscription à l'annexe permettrait de mettre en place une réglementation qui suit. Il ne faut pas déformer les faits. Le Sénégal est confronté à de sérieux problèmes pour cette espèce. Nos techniciens nous affirment que voilà 5 ans qu'on n'a pas observé dans nos côtes de requins renards. Et en amont de cette COP, le Sénégal, avec ses partenaires, sont parvenus à organiser un atelier international où la plupart des pays co-auteurs étaient à Dakar. Donc je crois que, comme je l'ai toujours dit, chers honorables délégués, l'inscription d'une espèce à l'annexe 2 traduit tout simplement la légalité dans l'acquisition, la traçabilité dans les mouvements des transactions et la durabilité. Il faut faire un suivi. Refuser d'inscrire une espèce en annexe 2, c'est s'inscrire dans la nébulosité pour permettre qu'ils ont des moyens de voler piller les ressources sur lesquelles un pays pour booster le développement social. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Senegal. And I note there are a lot of other co-proponents calling for the floor, but there are 24 co-proponents on this proposal. So I would like to hear from a few parties who are not co-proponents, and I may allow some time at the end to come back to some of the other co-proponents. But in the meantime, I would like to give the floor to, followed by Chile, then Iceland, Venezuela, and Peru. So India first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. India is a large fishing nation. We rely on our fishing to feed coastal communities and provide source of employment to a huge number of people. But we also know that fisheries, like all our natural resources, have a clear limit. Predators such as treasure sharks regulate the marine environment and keep it healthy, ensuring abundant fish stocks for future generations. That is why we strongly support the proposals from our close neighbors, the Maldives and Sri Lanka, to list them in Appendix II at this meeting. Appendix II listing are in bands, but will ensure that we, as responsible CITES parties, use these sharks sustainably so that they continue to fulfill their key role in regulating the marine environment. We must also remember that our neighbors, the Maldives, as a ocean state, need these sharks for their economy mainstay, sustainable diving tourism. We as fellow Indian Ocean want to assist the Maldives in protecting them all on other nations at the CITES COP to do the same. These listings are being discussed because of the hugely successful large-scale implementation action that has been conducted worldwide listing of sharks and rays on CITES Appendix II in 2013. We ourselves have hosted 2 regional workshops and have attended 2 more hosted neighbors, Sri Lanka. We have also reformed our legislation on the trade of shark fins and continue to prioritize the proper management and conservation of corals and rays. We have shown that CITES manages sharks and complements the works of it. Let us now offer Appendix 2 protect treasure sharks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, India. Next we have Chile.
Gracias.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
El género Alopia posee 3 especies válidas. Entregan antecedentes solo de una de ellas, Alopia superciliosus. Especie de amplia distribución en las zonas tropical, subtropical y templadas. No existen evaluaciones de stock globales, sin embargo, se han realizado estudios biológicos que permiten estimar una declinación poblacional de un 83%. Por otro lado, la especie presenta una tasa de incremento poblacional de solo 1.6% anual. El comercio internacional registra productos y subproductos de esta y de las otras especies.
And this applies to all 3 thresher shark species that are included in this proposal.
The
information found do not, however, allow us to conclude that these species meet the criteria for listing in Appendix 2. Or rather, they do, and we do support this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next from Iceland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Firstly, and as earliest, it is Iceland's general position that improved fishery management measures put in place local states and on the high seas by regional fisheries organizations are the best way to address conservation concerns for marine populations. As regards Proposal 43, where it is proposed that the big eye thresher shark in all areas should be listed in Appendix 2, Iceland concurs with the FAO Expert Advisory Panel, where it concluded that the stock status of big eye thresher shark does not satisfy the criteria for listing in Appendix 2. In the panel assessment, it is stated that the panel considered this a low productivity species and did no reliable evidence of big eye that would meet Appendix 2 listing criteria. The panel also noted that where a state's ability to complete CITES provisions for highly marked species was limited, then trade might cease or continue without adequate CITES documentation. It's also essential as whether previous CITES Annex 2 listings of sharks have in fact contributed to conservation prior to listings of shark species. Therefore, we consider that the responsible action to take is not to vote to list this species. Instead, the appropriate RFMOs and the responsible coastal countries should be encouraged to take suitable fisheries management measures in order to conserve and manage the big thresher shark. Thank you.
Thank you, Iceland. Next we will have Venezuela. Venezuela.
Gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
La República Bolivariana, ante la creciente preocupación del estado actual de las pesquerías de tiburones a nivel mundial, ha venido trabajando desde el año 2012 en el Plan de Acción Nacional para el Aprovechamiento Sostenible de Tiburones y, a su vez, en la generación de normas que regulen las capturas de este recurso a nivel nacional, como medida de protección y conservación de estas especies consideradas de gran importancia para los ecosistemas marinos. En función de lo anterior, nuestro país apoya las propuestas presentadas para la inclusión en el apéndice 2 de los tiburones zorro, así como de las mantas diablo, todas reportadas en las pesquerías nacionales y que ya se encuentran por la legislación venezolana. Muchas gracias.
Species are currently protected already under Venezuelan law. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Venezuela. Next we have Peru, followed by Colombia.
Muchas gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
El género Alopias incluye 3 especies.
Alopias
la información disponible muestra que Alopia supercilius,
tiburón
zorro, es altamente migratoria, tiene una baja productividad y es vulnerable a la sobrepesca. En Perú, de acuerdo a los desembarques, el Alopias vulpinus ocupa el 4º lugar. A pesar de que no se cuenta con la información poblacional en todos los océanos donde se encuentra distribuido, por ser una especie altamente migratoria y estar incluida en el apéndice 2 de la CMS, se considera conveniente apoyar la propuesta aplicando el principio precautorio como medida cautelar. Estas especies se encuentran incluidas en el Plan de Acción de Tiburón. Se podría trabajar en alguna legislación nacional. Por todo ello, aprobamos esta propuesta. Gracias.
Thank you, Peru. Next we have Colombia, which will be followed by Japan.
Gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be brief.
Colombia país rango de distribución del
is
tiburón
a
zorro,
range state for the thresher sharks, especially Alopius pelagicus, which are captured in fisheries along the Pacific coast and constitute a significant fisheries industry, which we agree requires better regulation and monitoring. Therefore, and to be consistent with our attitude towards these species in general, Colombia believes that this proposal is very important and we fully support inclusion of these species in Appendix 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next we have...
For the word, sorry.
Sorry. I can hear someone speaking, but I don't know where they're coming from. Yes. I was just going to say I'm giving the floor to Japan, followed by Sri Lanka. Japan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We first would like to thank the opponent, however, again, support this proposal. For the sake of saving time, I'm not going to repeat what I said for the previous proposal, but wish to stress the following points again. Before listing other sharks and rays in Appendix 2 listing, CITES should evaluate effects of Appendix 2 listing of sharks and rays on their conservation. At the same time, CITES should also intensify capacity building activities, particularly on species identification and NDF. We welcome EU saying it will start the second phase of capacity building, but this means that there are still lots of challenges, as we pointed out. We recognize that the problems with a 12-month preparation period, based on the experience that 18 months was not enough to implement sharks and rays listed at 16, we have serious doubt this period is enough to address all difficulties. Without having enough capacity building, Appendix 2 listing of additional sharks and rays will bring difficulties and confusions. Now I would like to make specific comments on this proposal. First, the proposal is not scientifically justified. The proposal said that reason concern on the stock status of big guy threat. However, the FAO expert advice panel concluded that there is no reliable evidence to support a decline of big guy threat that would meet Appendix 2 listing criteria. The proposal does not consider a recent study which indicates that the abundance of big guy thresher shark is flat in Western and Central and Northwestern Atlantic, that the stocks in these areas are not declining. Second, Appendix 2 listing of these species is not expected to provide conservation benefits. Thresher sharks are mainly hunted by artisanal fisheries. The meat is mainly consumed locally and only if imported. Even if they were to be listed in Appendix 2, only export of fins would be regulated. Catch of thresher sharks would continue for local consumption of meat. Third, sustainable use of thresher sharks can be achieved measures directly addressing catch. It can be done through regional fisheries management organizations and or coastal states based on the best scientific information. In fact, big white thresher shark is subject to prohibition of retention in the Atlantic Ocean by ICCAT, and all three thresher sharks are already subject to prohibition of retention in the Indian Ocean by IOTC. Some members, which are also members to IOTC, stated that Appendix 2 is not a trade ban, but those members cannot export thresher sharks if they comply with the IOTC regulation. In conclusion, the listing of thresher sharks in Appendix 2 does not meet the listing criteria. The listing will not contribute to the conservation of these species, while it will bring more implementation problems. Conservation and management of these species could be achieved by coastal countries, RFMOs, and stringent measures have been reduced in the Atlantic Ocean thresher shark and in the ocean for the three thresher sharks. With these reasons, Japan does not support this proposal. Then, Madam Chair, again, if it is put on vote, I would like to propose a secret ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. That's noted, Japan, and I will give the floor to Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate the opportunity to speak as a lead proponent on this proposal. Treasure sharks are, of course, facing global population declines driven by the demand for their fins in international trade. And as one of the world's largest fishing nations, we recognize the value of these species to fishing communities and in international trade. However, noting the significant decline of treasure sharks, not just within our waters, but also globally, we want to ensure any trade taking place is completely sustainable. Of course, the family of treasure sharks has the highest risk of all families of pelagic sharks. And the big-eye treasure is actually the most biologically vulnerable of all three treasure sharks. And it is also far more susceptible than the other two light treasures to capture in pelagic long-line fisheries. Although fisheries with this gen are often combined, they all meet the criteria of historic extent of decline and recent rate of decline defined in Resolution 9.24. The trends are likely an underestimate of the declines experienced by the big-eye treasure alone. Although fisheries records, the scientific data that is currently available clearly shows that these declines are driven by the unsustainable and global shark fin trade across the species range. And as I mentioned, the declines from the historic baseline, which are still continuing, more than fulfill the CITES Appendix II listing criteria. Additionally, multiple side events over the past few days have highlighted the value of treasure sharks for livelihoods and food security. Tremendous support from range states across the world has emphasized this in listing these species to ensure that they continue to be traded while maintaining sustainable populations. Annex 4 of document 88.3 by CMS stresses the need to conclude global or regional agreements for the conservation and management of treasure sharks. And this CITES listing would help fulfill the recommendation and additionally complement the limited RFMO measures currently in place. Document 88.3 also includes several submissions from statutory consultees that are regional fisheries management organizations that manage the treasure shark fisheries. Some have prohibited all treasure shark catch, while others are yet to take them. These submissions highlight the clear complementary nature of CITES list management. Of course, as a member of IOTC, recognize the value of RFMOs. However, I'd like to emphasize that although retention measures are introduced in some of these RFMOs, landings of these species have not decreased as a result. Therefore, a CITES Appendix II listing is needed to complement these RFMO measures currently in place. Sri Lanka has also very clearly stated through our national legislation to protect treasure sharks that treasure shark catch can be separated from catch of other species and therefore easily avoided if properly enforced. Therefore, once again, a CITES listing would complement the RFMO measures currently in place and furthermore enable these species to recover while maintaining sustainable take. From dedicated implementation work since 2013, we have emphatically answered the question of whether RFMOs and CITES can work together to conserve shark species. And the answer is, of course, yes. The submissions also highlight that treasure shark protections on a global scale are very limited and regional by their very name and nature. It confirms why a CITES Appendix II is needed now to ensure that sustainable trade underpinned by sustainable fisheries is prioritized throughout their range, with the global application and accountability that only CITES can offer. An Appendix II listing would result in better monitoring and reporting of treasure catches entering international trade, which in turn will result in improved management for these valuable species in both national and regional fishery organizations. Furthermore, to address the issues over identification, tools, including identification guides and genetic kits, prepared by various organizations, including iSharkFeo, are already readily available to identify treasure shark products in trade and are extremely easy to use. This, again, along with the successful implementation conducted for the COP16 shark listing, emphasizes making the trade of shark fins for species like treasure sharks is very feasible. Trade of treasure shark meat is extremely limited across most of its range and not a significant driver of the fisheries. Instead, meat is usually a byproduct of the fin trade. Where meat is traded, similar to meat of other already implementation of Appendix II has been proven to be successful. One example is actually the trade of porbeagle shark by both Japan and Norway, for which legal acquisition and non-document findings were successfully issued. Additionally, genetic tools along with product traceability, as recommended in document 56.1, can be used to better implement the listing. Also, as mentioned, Sri Lanka has been working with Germany regional NDF for silky sharks. We are confident that we can do the same for treasure sharks in the Indian Ocean. I'd also like to add, as the EU already mentioned, that we recommend the inclusion of a 12-month delayed implementation phase to provide parties with additional time to obtain the readily available identification tools and ensure sufficient time to inform and train customs officials. Finally, we would like to draw attention to the precautionary principle under Resolution 9.24 when listing these species. This is especially vital given that although data already depicts clear declines driven by international trade and meeting the Appendix II listing criteria, we know that this data is severely underrepresentative of the true scale of depletion. This is due to multiple factors, including illegal, unreported, and unregulated fisheries, limited monitoring on board vessels, discards at sea, and ghost necking. Therefore, given the current available data meeting the listing criteria, the growing and unsustainable trade of treasure fins, and parties' obligations to consider the precautionary bill, we call upon all of you to adopt this proposal and list these species on Appendix II. Our goal as a small developing nation is to promote sustainable species and ensure we all can keep fishing these species while also benefiting from sustainable alternatives such as shark ecotourism for generations to come. Distinguished delegates, unsustainable trade, devastating treasure shark populations has to be controlled, and the time is now. Please vote yes for treasure sharks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sri Lanka. And fortunately, we don't have the luxury of time to discuss all of these proposals at length. So I do propose to take two interventions for observers. I will first take the Humane Society International, followed by IWMC. Humane Society.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Ceci est une allocution au nom des membres du Species Survival Network, dont Humane Society International, mais aussi Project Aware, Shark Advocates International, Shark Trust, Wildlife Conservation Society, WWF, IFO, Pew Charitable Trust, Manta Trust et la Zoological Society of London. Nous souhaitons exprimer notre soutien envers cette proposition qui vise à l'inscription des requins renards et tenons également à remercier l'ensemble des parties qui ont travaillé dans le sens de l'adoption de cette proposition. La surpêche et le commerce international non encadré de chair et d'ailerons de requins renards représentent une menace sérieuse pour cette espèce. Tels que le démontrent pays, des populations viables de requins renards peuvent apporter des bénéfices durables aux communautés côtières de par la pêche et le tourisme. L'adoption de cette option serait conforme aux principes de précaution et complémentaire des mesures de conservation. L'inscription de cette espèce participerait à l'amélioration des données de pêche et de commerce, faciliterait ainsi l'aptitude des parties à s'assurer que le commerce international ne mène pas la survie de l'espèce. Aussi, nous invitons respectueusement les parties à adopter cette proposition. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Humane Society National, and finally to IWMC.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Many initiatives starting in 2000 have resulted in the collapse of demand for fins in Asia, which has severely impacted the demand for prices for shark fin globally. Still, Madam Chair, throughout the proposal that we have in front of us, the target is the, quote, over-exploitation for their fins, unquote. And in the proposal, we find the following argument, quote, demand from international shark fin markets is the driving economic force for retention and mortality. It is folksome to realize that after having eliminated an inexistent threat to survival of sharks, the proponents are now using the same non-existent but nevertheless eliminated threat to justify new listing these appendices. 3 final, very quick comments, Madam Chair. The use of the lookalike principle for the listing of 2 species of treasure shark, common and pelagic, shall constitute a dangerous precedent for eventual future listing of marine fish species. 2, I think the panel of the FAO shall be abolished as of now, as its advice and expertise are never followed when we deal with proposal for the listing of marine fish species. We find it useless to continue spending money on that. Finally, Madam Chair, when you come to Proposal 44, you might wish to consult CMS. For us, the Mobula proposal is more an Appendix I proposed listing than an Appendix II. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, IWMC, and I will allow the FAO 2 or 3 short minutes if they want to make an intervention. Really, you must keep it very brief, FAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The June 2016 FAO expert panel, after reviewing proposal number 43 against the best available information, concluded that big eye thresher shark do not meet the biological criteria for listing in CITES Appendix II. Helpfully, we had a number of recent analysis that were available to describe the status of stocks. In the Atlantic Ocean, an analysis of comparable observer data found the trend in big eye thresher abundance to be relatively stable for the 23 years prior to 2014. In the Indian Ocean, as we've heard, we didn't have information that we could assess. In the Pacific, 2 data sets were highly informative: a 19-year standardized catch per unit effort data series from the Western Central Pacific for the thresher genus, and a 20-year standardized species-specific catch per unit effort data series from the Hawaiian longline fishery. Both these data sets ran to 2014. The first showed a slight decline in the most recent 3 years, but not to the point that triggered the CITES criteria, whereas the second data series, which covers an area where big eye thresher is most abundant, was generally stable with a recent increase in catch rate over the 95 to 2014 period. There was no decline, and the catch rate in one case was increasing. Again, these criteria were not listed. I've been asked to keep this, so I won't give the little summary. I can just say a couple of things about the management. At a regional level, all tuna RFMs adopted prohibition finning and encouraged release of live sharks where possible, having species-specific management. Retention of big eye thresher is prohibited by the International Commission on the Conservation of Atlantic Tunas, ICAT, and the General Fisheries Commission of the Mediterranean, GFCM. The Indian Ocean Tuna Commission, IOTC, prohibits the retention of any thresher shark species. It should be noted that where there are prohibitions on retention of thresher sharks, they are still caught, and the mortality of those released may be in the order of 50%. Lastly, I'll just go into a bit of a trade perspective. Retention, where permitted, is both for local consumption and international trade. Thresher shark products are in international trade in different forms, including meat and fins, whereas thresher shark fins are considered by traders to be one of the least valuable types of shark fins on the market, a market that has recorded declines, as mentioned previously. In conclusion, the panel determination was that big shark did not meet the biological criteria for listing in CITES Appendix II. Additionally, the panel noted big eye thresher sharks were largely a bycatch species and that fishery management authorities and national controls had been introduced. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, FAO. And I would now suggest that we do actually put this proposal to a vote. And I note that we had a request from Japan for a ballot. So the first thing I would do is ask for the request for the floor to be, thank you very much. And I would ask those parties who are supporting Japan's request for a secret ballot to indicate so now. Okay, that's fine. We are in excess of the 10 parties that are required to support that request. So please prepare yourself for a secret ballot on proposal number 43, which is the inclusion of the genus Alopias in Appendix II, with a 12-month delay in implementation. use the same procedure as we did the last time, with the European Union registering its vote already. Very good, very impressed. So we have received the vote from the European Union. So for the remainder of the room, this is a vote on proposal number 43. The European Union and its member states are not voting in this. The voting type is by a secret ballot. Since this is a vote on a proposal for an amendment to Appendix 1 or 2, the decision will be adopted by a 2/3 majority. So again, a yes vote means that you are voting to include the genus Alopias in Appendix 2 with this 12-month delay in implementation, and a no vote against this proposal, so the genus will not be included in Appendix 2. And of course, you can abstain. So if the Commissions can indicate when we are ready to take the vote. So the vote will be open for 30 seconds, and the vote is open now. Okay, thank you very much for your patience, and I can announce that even without registering the EU's vote, which I haven't even looked at yet, yes, the proposal has been accepted, even without. When we add in the European Union's votes, it would be a total of 108, 29 no, and 5 abstentions. So could you please display that on the screen behind me? Thank you. So this is accepted. Thank you very much. And before I move on to the next one, could I ask the interpreters if they are happy to stay for another half an hour?
Yes, we are, Madam.
Thank you very much for that. It's greatly appreciated. And in line with the cooperation from the interpreters, I hope that I can have the cooperation in the room here, because we still have 14 proposals to get through. Yeah, that's the reality. So with that said, we will move swiftly on proposal 44, and I will introduce this. Fiji, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The government of Fiji, on behalf of our co-sponsors, the Bahamas, Bangladesh, Benin, Brazil, Burkina Faso, Comoros, Costa Rica, Ecuador, the European Union members, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Maldives, Mauritania, Palau, Panama, Senegal, Seychelles, Sri Lanka, the United States would sincerely like to ask all the remaining parties at COP17 to consider adopting Proposal 44 to include both the sickle fin and the spine-tailed devil rays and the other 7 species on Mobula into Appendix 2 of CITES. We would like to thank all co-proponents, representing every continent chair, which we believe may be co-proponents for our CITES listing. This worldwide support illustrates the global importance of this listing proposal. We understand that some parties are seeking a delay for the implementation of this list should it be successful, and Fiji, on behalf of these co-sponsors, would like to be happy would be happy to consider this option and happy to delay it by 6 months. Mobile rays are close relatives of the manta rays, which currently enjoy protection under Appendix II of CITES. Like manta rays, mobile rays are slow-growing, large-bodied animals that produce very few young and are classified by FAO as having very low productivity. Madam Chair, mobile rays primarily correlate international trade markets. They are often found in slow-moving aggregations, which make them particularly prone to purseine and gillnet fishing, which they are also caught in long-line fisheries. The FAO Technical Review Panel, ICUN traffic and recommendation of the Secretariat state that mobile rays meet the criteria to be included on Appendix. In addition to this, Madam, Fiji have submitted 2 recent information documents which incorporates more recent information on population declines and low productivity, which is the proposal to include mobiles on Appendix II. These documents are Docs .75 and INFS Doc 76, which include recent data that shows that productivity for mobile rays is lower than previously thought and have one of the lowest rates of population increases of all sharks and rays. The most recent IUCN Red List assessment for Chilean day rays published this year have resulted in a reclassification of this species from data deficient to vulnerable. Mobilus, Madam Chair, has increased threefold in recent years. In 2004, the Animals Committee highlighted mobilus as a group that contains a portion of species subject to unregulated, unsustainable fishing practices, leading to severe stock depletions. In 2014, mobile rays were opted into the appendices of the Convention for the Conservation of Migratory Species of CMS. Madam Chair, due to the similarity of both the mid and the gill plates of mobile rays and manta rays, FAO CITES data does not distinguish between mantas and mobilus. Also, they are likely due to the manta rays on up to at the last CITESCOP, the reduction in availability of legally acquired manta gill plates is leading to an increase in demand in trade of mobile gill plates. Placing mobile rays into Appendix II of the Convention will also support the existing CITES listing of manta rays. A vote against listing is a vote against the sustainability of an increasingly vulnerable species. And Madam Chair, perhaps if IUCN traffic could attest to these new findings that I've just outlined above, Madam. But I think we have been given a warm welcome to Johannesburg as host, the government of South Africa. And the spectacular ceremony showed the links between African terrestrial megafauna and the African people. For countries like Fiji and many of our distinguished co-sponsor parties, sharks and rays play an important role in our cultures and our traditions and our spirituality. Their continued over-exploitation, mainly by foreign fishing fleets, whose only link to this financial one, is leading to unsustainable practices, which has led to serial depletion of the precious resources and the erosion of our people's culture, traditions, and spiritual life. Some in this committee may argue that the conservation of the sharks and rays should be left with regional fisheries management organizations. But let me clearly tell you today that no RFMOs to date has even bothered to manage or collect data sets on CPU from the last 20, 30 years. I know this firsthand because I am also a member of an RFMO for the last 20 years. And the RFMO, which I am a member, is currently struggling to do something about suction rates from the last 7 years. Madam Chair, I will be coming to Mobula japonica, Mobula tarapacana qualify for both in Appendix 2 under N2A Criterion A, being CITES guidelines for the application of decline of low productivity commercially exploited aquatic species. Increasing international trade in Mobula gill plates has led to expansion of unsustainable fisheries, which are largely unregulated and unmonitored. As a result, Madam Chair, local catch declines of up to 96% for Mobula japonica and 99% for Mobula tarapacana in the Indo-Pacific region have served in fish population over the last 10 to 15 years, despite increased directed effort. Small and highly managed populations, exceptionally activity, and known aggregated behavior make this species highly vulnerable to extinction, with limited ability to recover from a depleted state. Without prompt regulation of international trade, this species will likely soon qualify globally for Appendix 1 listing. May I also ask of our proposal's co-proponent may also like to speak after this presentation. Chair, with all humility and goodwill, we ask all the distinguished members this August forum to support this proposal and endorse the listing of the Mobula race into Appendix 2. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Fiji. I will allow one intervention from another co-proponent. I note that you have 23, I counted, so it is already 6:30, but I will give the floor to Costa Rica because we have not heard from them in relation to the sharks and rays before. So Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señora Presidenta. Costa Rica es uno de los países rango de distribución de algunas especies del género y es además coproponente de esta propuesta en la región de las Américas. Estimados delegados, la propuesta cumple con los requisitos para la inclusión en el apéndice 2 según los criterios de calificación de la Conferencia de las Partes 9.24 revisada en la COP15. Son animales de lento crecimiento y la más baja tasa de fecundidad de los elástios, característica que coloca este género en la categoría de menor productividad según la FAO, con poblaciones reducidas y altamente fragmentadas, que se afecta también por el cambio climático debido a que los cambios de temperatura en el mar afecta la productividad del plancton, su principal dieta. La contaminación por desechos sólidos, plástico, puede afectar no solo por ingesta directa, sino también por enredamiento, bioacumulación, pérdida de hábitat, entre otros. Las especies de este género son objetos de pesca y de captura incidente, dados sus patrones migratorios en cardúmenes, por lo que se hace altamente vulnerable. Igualmente, debido a la alta demanda en los mercados asiáticos para su uso gástrico y medicinal, ha generado un preocupante crecimiento de captura directa e incidental que sería insostenible para las especies debido a las características ecológicas de las mismas. Costa Rica está trabajando para lograr las metas CITES para el 2020 y pretende ampliar con la participación ciudadana y gobernanza sus áreas marinas protegidas, el ordenamiento espacial marino, la seguridad alimentaria, la conservación y uso sostenible de recursos marino-costeros, entre otros. Por lo tanto, se debe trabajar en monitoreo biológico, socioeconómico y trazabilidad frente al uso de las rayas. Como país, nunca dejemos de lado la conservación de estas importantes especies para los ecosistemas y estamos seguros que, basados en el principio precautorio y capitalizando la sinergia existente en la Convención de Especies Migratorias, la Convención de Diversidad Biológica, la CIAT, la FAO y el poder garantizar en esta COP la inclusión de todo el género de móvula en el apéndice 2 de CITES, se permitirá la conservación y uso sostenible de estas pesquerías. Por lo tanto, Costa Rica insta a todas las partes a apoyar las propuestas. Gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Costa Rica, and then one final co-proponent to Ecuador.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. El gobierno, al igual que los países de la región, han realizado un esfuerzo para implementar la inclusión de los tiburones y rayas en el apéndice 2, después que en el año 2013, en la COP16 llevada a cabo en Tailandia, se logró con una votación arrolladora de más del 90% una decisión histórica, como fue la inclusión de 2 especies de mantarrayas y 5 especies de tiburones. Esto fue un hecho que reveló la preocupación mundial que existe ante la situación poblacional y de comercio ilegal de estas taxas. Es así que para la presente reunión de la COP17, con la propuesta de inclusión de 2 especies de tiburones y una raya que cuenta con el respaldo de más de 50 países coproponentes, se denota el incremento en esta preocupación mundial. Teniendo en cuenta todo esto y considerando que el Ecuador es coproponente de esta propuesta, además de son 22 países coproponentes, oramos importantísimo e invitamos a todas las partes a votar en favor de esta propuesta. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much. Ecuador, sorry, I'm losing track here. I'd like to give the floor now to some non-co-proponents, so I'd give the floor to New Zealand, followed by Canada, then Colombia and Iceland.
Thank you, Chair. We will be briefer than we were last time. New Zealand strongly supports this proposal. The case for listing mobula rays in Appendix II is actually far stronger in our view than the successful COP16 listing for mantas, both from biological and trade perspectives. We think it's a very, very strong proposal. There is strong evidence of scattered populations, severely declining catches in some areas, and serial depletion in parts of the mobula range. And we urge all parties to also vote in favour of this proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. New Zealand. Canada, please.
Thank you, Chair. Canada supports the inclusion of the 9 mobula ray species in Appendix II. Mobula terrapicana and Mobula japonica meet the Appendix II criteria, as regulation of trade is required to ensure that the harvest is not reducing wild populations to unsustainable levels. The dried gill plates of all mobula species are difficult to distinguish in trade, and the other 7 mobula species meet the lookalike criteria to be listed in Appendix II. Mobula gill plates are highly valued in trade, and international trade is driving harvest in directed and non-directed fisheries. Although some range states have implemented domestic management measures, such as prohibitions, specific management measures to ensure sustainable harvest are generally lacking. A CITES listing would provide a needed mechanism for tracking products in trade and would ideally be implemented along with complementary domestic measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Canada. We'll have Colombia, followed by Iceland and Cabo Verde, and so Colombia next, please.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mobula mantas Colombia are considered to be iconic species within our protected marine areas, in particular as they involve ecotourism in the Utria-Gorgona National Park and as well around the Malpedo Island in the Colombian Pacific and in the marine protected area in the Caribbean. There have been few captures reported, but the fisheries that are active in these areas are small communities that have the right to do so. They harvest at a local level and they would not be affected by the measures proposed here. Listing in Appendix II regulates international trade. Therefore, as was the case for the manta CITES during the previous COP, Colombia would like to support the inclusion of the genus mobile species in Appendix 2. Thank you much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Scotland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As regards Proposal 44, Iceland concurs with the FAO Expert Advisory Panel concerning the fact of the available data on decline of the Mopula trapacana and Mopula japonica was of low reliability and limited to the Eastern Pacific and Pacific regions, so the panel could not determine the status across other areas. Therefore, Iceland does not support this listing, and we believe it is untimely. Additionally, an Appendix 2 listing of the devil rays would not contribute to the conservation of this species, as the devil rays are in many countries caught in coastal fisheries. The meat is consumed domestically, and only the gill plates are eaten. Appendix 2 listing will therefore only regulate trade of it, but the catch and meat consumption continues. Therefore, we consider that responsible action to take is not to vote this species. Instead, appropriate RFOs and the responsible coastal countries should be encouraged to take suitable fisheries management measures in order to conserve and manage devil rays. Finally, if this proposal comes to a vote, we would like to ask for CITES. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Iceland. We now from Cabo Verde. Cabo Verde, can you push your button and just wait until the floor comes to you? You may be pushing it numerous times, so just push it once.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for this chance to comment on this important proposal. I take this time to talk about sharks, that I don't have an opportunity to talk about the other propositions. Madam Chair, artisanal shark fisheries and sustainable use of marine resources are critical to our small island. We believe this Appendix 2 proposal reflects our commitment to these priorities and will take us a long way toward effective use of CITES, a complement to fishermen for idle trade shark species. Listing in Appendix 2 of CITES will provide us with the opportunity to regulate trade at the global level. It will help us to increase the amount of data on trade in sharks and rays, which we are currently lacking in many areas. In turn, we believe it will help to support the better management measures in all regional fisheries management organization, helping to make the management measures that are in place in these for more effective. Cabo Verde, therefore, supports this proposal to list the species of sharks and rays in Appendix 2 of CITES, and we encourage parties to join us in supporting these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Cabo Verde, and I will now give the floor to China.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank Fiji and all the other proponents for preparing this proposal. It is true that there's gill plate seal in a few traditional areas of China, which is for seasonal consumption. However, depending on the survey conducted by ourselves, the annual sales of 60 tons and 120 tons respectively in 2011-2013 in Guangzhou, as stated in this proposal, might have been overestimated. Meanwhile, we'd like to remind parties to notice that, except from gill plates, The mobula meat is also frequently consumed in many coastal regions as an important protein source and considered the low yield rate of geoplates, about 2%, the mobula meat value should be regarded as one of fishing drugs. China remains nutrient flexible on the of new sharks and marine species. On the scientific data is sound and more importantly, if the new mobula species is accepted by parties in terms of their capacities in implementing the new listings. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, China. I would like to hear from a number of observers at this point. I will give the floor to CMS, followed by Shark Advocates International, and then a brief intervention from FAO. So CMS first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. CMS parties decided at their 11th conference in 2014 to list all 9 mobulid rays on Appendix 1 of the Convention on Migratory Species. CMS Appendix 1 precludes the taking of the species for commercial purposes. It precludes the issuing of legal acquisition findings and assigned by a CMS party. Thus, the 123 parties to both conventions have already agreed to stronger protection for these species than is afforded by CITES Appendix II. As such, a CITES Appendix II listing would be very consistent with the existing listing on CMS. Thank you.
Thank you, CMS. I'll now give the floor to Shark Advocates International.
Thank you, Chair. Shark Advocates International, Project Aware, WWF, WCS, Manta Trust, SSN, the Pew Charitable Trust, ZSL, and IFA are all pleased to express enthusiastic support for this proposal. We echo many speakers' comments and take this opportunity to just stress that these species are among the ocean's most currently vulnerable animals. It's been more than a decade since the CITES Animals Committee warned about unsustainable fishing and severe depletion of devil rays associated with substantial international trade in their high-value products. In particular, the persistent demand for mobula gill plates is a primary driver of both targeted fisheries and retention of incidental catch. There are very few devil ray specific fishing restrictions, which together represent seriously inadequate protection. IUCN, Traffic, the CITES Secretariat, and the expert panel all agree that these exceptionally low productivity species meet these 2 listing criteria. Adoption of this proposal is in line with that expert advice and urgently needed to prevent further depletion, gather needed data, complement amendments on treaties, and improve implementation of CITES obligations for closely related manta rays. We urge parties to adopt this sound proposal. Chair.
Thank you, Shark Advocates International, and I now give the floor to FAO.
Thank you, Chair. As we heard, the expert panel, after proposal number 44 against the best available information, concluded sickle fin and spine-tail rays do meet the biological criteria for listing in CITES Appendix II. Data on trends is extremely limited. However, the panel noted declines where data existed from the best available species-specific and genus dataset that these declines met the CITES Appendix II listing criteria. From a management perspective, regional management bodies, for example, the Inter-American Tropical Tuna Commission, IATTC, prohibit retention of mobulids with an exemption for artisanal fisheries exclusively for domestic consumption. Some tuna regional fisheries management organisations require catches of mobulids as a group or as individual species to be recorded and reported annually. From a trade perspective, mobulids are targeted by small-scale and artisanal fishers, but also caught by others while fishing for a range of species. Targeted fishing is primarily for local consumption and international trade of the gill plates, a trade that is recognised to have expanded in recent years. In conclusion, the expert panel's determination was that sickle fin and spine-tail rays do meet the biological criteria for listing in CITES Appendix II. The panel noted that the data was weak, but the best available evidence pointed to large and rapid declines. The panel also took into account the life history and behaviour characteristics of these 2 species, which had notable risk factors for stock safety. If well implemented, CITES II listing does up improved monitoring of stocks and trade and clears up look-alike issues for mobula products in trade. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, FAO. And I would just like to draw everyone's attention, again, with time in mind, that I realise I've had a limited number of interventions, but there has only been one voice dissenting, and I note the number of co-proponents. We have 23 co-proponents, of which the European is one, so that actually represents 50 actually proposing this. So there seems to be a lot of people in them who are in support of this proposal. To be sure that I am capturing everybody, so we seem to be approaching a consensus, but I just want to check if there are any other parties who are, like Iceland, want to speak against this proposal. So what I propose to do is to clear my speakers list. Can I clear my list first, please? Thank you. And I would ask if there are parties who want to speak in opposition to this. I see one in Japan. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. At first, I'd like to thank the proponents for this proposal. As you said, Japan does not support this proposal. I don't like to repeat what my colleagues said for other shark species, but once again, let me repeat one most important point. Before listing other sharks and rays in Appendix 2 listing, the CITES should evaluate the of Appendix 2 listing of sharks and rays or on their conservation. At the same time, CITES should also intensify capacity building activities, particularly on species identification and NDF. Without conducting these activities, Appendix 2 listing of additional sharks and rays will simply bring more difficulties and confusion. So now let me make a specific comment on this proposal. First, we are not proposal is scientifically justified. The proposal said that for the proposal is concerned on the stock status of sick-fin devil ray and spiny devil ray. Although FA expert advisory panel determined that the data on decline meets the Appendix 2 listing criteria, the panel also recognized that most of the showing decline was of low reliability, and the evidence for decline was geographically limited. Because of these reasons, the panel could not determine the state of the areas. Therefore, Japan considers it is mature to conclude stock state of the species satisfy the criteria for list in Appendix 2 in the global scale. Second, the case of silky shark and celestial shark, Appendix 2 listing this species is not expected to provide conservation benefits. In most of the countries, mobula rays are mainly harvested in coastal artisanal fisheries. The meat is consumed locally and only are exported. Even if they were to be listed in Appendix 2, only export of gillplates would be regulated, while catch of mobula rays would continue for local consumption. Third and last, conservation and sustainable use of mobula rays can be achieved by measures directly addressing catch. In the discussion in CITES FAO meeting last April, I was told that an Southeast Asian country significantly reduced bycatch of manta rays by changing mesh of gillplate. Like this, conservation and sustainable use can be achieved by measures adopted by regional fish management organizations and/or states based on the best scientific information. In conclusion, it is not clear whether the list mobula ray in Appendix 2 meets the listing criteria. The listing will not contribute to the conservation of the species, while it will bring more implementation problems. So conservation and management of these species could be achieved by coastal countries or through RFMOs. With this, Japan opposed this proposal. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Japan, I also see Myanmar.
Thank you, Madam Chair, to giving this opportunity to the Myanmar. So since Myanmar is also one of the countries related to the fishery, but in Myanmar there are two mambula species, such as the Japanicus and Trustonis are habitat are recorded to be caught in the Myanmar water. So inclusion of the mambulas, Tarapacanas and Mambula Japanicus in the Appendix II, it will be impact to the fishery and livelihood of the coastal people of the Myanmar due to the look-alike species consensus. So additionally, this proposal should be considered as premature due to the limited regional and global scientific landing data. So no sufficient data to be used for proving the status and trend of the mambula species in the Southeast Asia and also other. Therefore, more scientific information and studies are necessary. So Myanmar, therefore, does not support the proposal. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Myanmar. I know that China and Equatorial Guinea are looking for the floor as well. I can say that we do not have a consensus. I was hoping to move us towards a clear, noting that these particular countries we could note that they were not supported but would not block the consensus. But now I have 4 or 5 parties. So I propose that we put this to a vote. I note that Iceland had requested goes to a vote that we have a secret ballot. So my first thing was to see if there are 10 parties in of this secret ballot. So could I clear my screen first? No, could I clear it first, please? Don't push until I tell you. Okay, it's clear. Thank you. So if you are in support of the request for a secret ballot on this vote, could you please push your button now? Thank you. Okay, we have the 10 parties required. So it will be by secret ballot, and we will use the same procedure as we did previously. So the European Union, if they could submit their vote on this proposal, noting that we are voting on the proposal to include the genus Mobula in Appendix II with a 6-month delay in implementation. So for the remainder of for the technicians, this is a vote on proposal number 44. European Union and its member states are not voting. The vote is by a secret ballot. And since this is a vote on a proposal for amendment of Appendix 1 or 2, the decision will be adopted by a 2/3 majority. So again, to clarify, a yes vote means, that's one, delay. A yes vote, you are voting in support of including the genus Mobula in the 6-month delay, and a no vote means you are against the inclusion of the genus Mobula in Appendix 2. And of course, you can abstain. So if the technicians can tell me when they're ready to take the vote. Technicians. So the vote is ready. You will have 30 seconds to register your vote, and the vote is open now. Okay, I can now announce the results. Yes, let's do it in reverse order. No is 20. Abstentions, 3. And yes, 110. That is including the EU vote. So this is accepted. Okay, thank you very much. And again, the indulgence of the interpreters, we are at 7 o'clock now. And again, if we push for another 30 minutes, I'm really sorry to ask, but it's so important that we just clear the agenda items.
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Thank you so much. So we will really now have to gather pace and try to get through the remaining items. So we have Proposal 45, which is to include the Ocelot River Stingray in Appendix 2. And I'll give Bolivia the floor to introduce this very briefly. Bolivia, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
En virtud de nuestra propuesta, deseo informar que el Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia ha considerado retirar la de inclusión de Raya Motoro al apéndice 2, ya que hemos notado que no tenemos el suficiente apoyo para presentarla. Sin embargo, quiero desaprovechar la ocasión para solicitar de todos los países partes de las CITES y en especial a los países que cuentan con esta especie dentro de la distribución, hacer comercio internacional de esta especie en sus países y de esta manera se pueda fortalecer esta propuesta y otras que se contemplen de necesidad para su listado. Y si es caso, presentar por los países de distribución para su inclusión en los CITES en el futuro. Por lo tanto, Bolivia quisiera anunciar que presentará la inclusión de la raya toro, potamotrigo motoro, al apéndice, tomando en cuenta que se precisa fortalecer la propuesta con más información al respecto de comercio internacional y para todos nosotros es de gran importancia a nivel internacional y estamos muy preocupados por su conservación. Muchas gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, and we have noted your request for support and your intention to list this species in Appendix 3. But I also note that the Proposal 45 is now withdrawn, so that we will move on to Proposal 56, which is on Pteropogon cauderni, the Banggai cardinal fish, and the proposal to include this in Appendix 2. I will give the floor to the European Union to briefly introduce this, bearing in mind that the proposals have been available for parties to see. So, a brief introduction, European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Member States are pleased to present to COP17 this proposal to include the cardinal fish in Appendix 2. This is a species that is endemic to a small area of Indonesia in the Banggai archipelago and occurs as a series of small isolated populations. The species is in demand in trade as live individuals for aquaria. The European Union is one of the primary nations for such species in trade. In the 5 most recent years for which we have compiled data, more than 77,000 specimens have been imported into the EU, though certain authors report annual harvests having reached 900,000 fish per year in 2007. The United States are also a key player, and international trade is the key driver for harvest. The species is in demand in trade, but it is also vulnerable to exploitation, and because of its sedentary adult behavior, it does not recolonize extirpated sites naturally. The species occurs in shallow waters and can be easily targeted for harvest. Parties will recall that this species was subject to a proposal at COP14 in 2007 by the United States to include the species in Appendix 2. At that stage, reported that at least one subpopulation had become due to overharvesting and a depletion of occurring. Now the evidence clearly demonstrates that 5 sites are locally extinct and a further 7 have suffered population declines exceeding 90% of serial depletion of sites. It is our opinion that this species meets criteria A and B for inclusion in Appendix 2. This assessment is shared by the analysis of the FAO Expert Advisory Panel, CITES Secretariat, IUCN, Traffic, and others. It's also now listed as endangered in IUCN Red List. Chair, the proposal to COP40 was withdrawn by the United States following comments made in debate by Indonesia, amongst others, noting its ongoing conservation efforts and the potential impact of a listing on all livelihoods. It is therefore with deep regret and concern that almost 10 years later, we see that the status of species has worsened and that regulated and unsustainable trade continues to be the key factor driving this decline. This is an outcome that does not benefit local livelihoods, which has also seen a shift in captive breeding in non-range states. The EU and its member states believe that including species in CITES would empower the Indonesian authorities to control exports of the species and help bringing international attention and cooperation in support of Indonesia's policies towards protection of the species. As one of the main markets for the species, we feel that inclusion in Appendix II is necessary at this COP meeting to regulate trade in order to ensure utilization compatible with the survival of the species. The EU and its members have been in regular consultation with Indonesia's management and scientific authorities on this species since July 2015. The EU appreciates Indonesia's call for assistance to be able to meet CITES requirements, and we stand ready to provide support to Indonesia to assist implementing CITES for this species. Should such technical support not be sufficient to assist Indonesia in the term, we would also be ready to consider including in our proposal an annotation enabling to delay the entry into force of the proposal for 18 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much, European Union. I will now open the floor for comment. I see you're first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, PDR want to support the decision made by CITES Secretariat to reject the include oceanic river stingray in the Appendix II. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Lau PDR. I think I would like to immediately come to the range state, Indonesia, and give you the floor. Indonesia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, Indonesia will affirm that Indonesia has very strong concern and commitment in marine biodiversity conservation. Laws and regulations related with conservation of marine species and its habitats are already enacted. Specifically, government also has regulation to conserve fish resources under the Law Number 31, 2004, as amended by Law Number 45, 2009, Government Regulation Number 60, 2007, and other ministerial regulation as well as ministerial decrees. Indonesia believes that fish conservation, including Banggai cardinal fish, is the effort to protect, preserve, and utilize fish resource, including its ecosystem, species, and genetics to ensure its sustainability in nature. Therefore, we would prefer to manage Banggai cardinal fish through use of national management controls rather than CITES trade regulation. In relation to Banggai cardinal fish, Indonesia has the same interest with European and consider acting swiftly to improve the species population. Indonesia would like to thank the European Union for its concern and attention to our native and endemic species, Banggai cardinal fish. BCF has been an iconic fish for Banggai people and determined as local identity. BCF also has been cultured and released to other locations outside Banggai Island. The survival of BCF outside Banggai Island is proven high and can populate easily. Moreover, this species has proved can live across the country that show its capacity to cope with new environment and pressures. However, still the BCF found in Banggai Island has a physical character, for example, color pattern that differ from species from other sites. Madam, Indonesia is the only marine state for BCF, and therefore and intervention to improve its population has to be specific for and driven by context. However, Indonesia is also aware that many efforts need to be undertaken. Therefore, Indonesia appreciates EU concerns and assistance to improve BCF population. Indonesia is welcome for more collaboration holders, including EU, to improve our national effort to protect BCF and harvest its sustainability. Indonesia considers there are at least 3 major issues for BCF. First, it is related to the population decrease, caused mainly by the damage of BCF microhabitat. Secondly, the issue is related to the method of BCF harvest is not sustainable using destructive methods or not concise. Thirdly, the issue is related with the management of aquaculture and local trade. To respond to these issues, Indonesia has implemented management measures to preserve the BCF since 2007, including protection of BCF habitat through marine protected area in 2000. We are now examining existing MA zoning and initiating the zoning revision to ensure the BCF habitats are adequately protected. Establishment of BCF in 2007 to improve and implement fisheries managed in local level under the center quota and catch sites were education, awareness campaign, and training been implemented targeted to local fishermen and community. Selling BCF is not a main source of income for local community. The major income of local community is coming from captured fisheries, processing of fish products such as dried and salty fish, and from coconut and clove. Conduct research program regarding captive breeding of BCF by Marine Research and Development Unit in Ambon. Pilot implementation to culture BCF has been tested at Banggai by local community, and they can culture BCF successfully. BCF aquaculture also successfully implemented in Bali. Conduct data collection and monitoring relating to the trade of BCF in fishing port. Restocking BCF from culture to other locations outside Banggai Island. Restocking guideline has been established in 2000. In local level, the Banggai Regency also has applied specific measures such as limitation of size and rotation of catch sites. Community and research centers successfully undertake culture of BCF, and restocking also have been done in several locations. National standard number 8109 BCF culture has been established in 2015. Madam Chair, Indonesia is also aware that not all those efforts have worked well in the field, as during that time there were another additional problems. Banggai district has been divided into 2 regencies in 2013 that compromise the conservation effort and affect the management of Banggai MPA, where BCF habitats are protected. The existence of 2 districts also create enforcement and monitoring of inter-island transportations. Aware with those problems and the fact that the population of BCF in Banggai is still declining, Indonesia, by designing this space as one of national priority space for conservation within 2000 and 2019. National action have been prepared and consulted to holders and anticipated will be ready by this year. Under the plan of a specific target has been set to improve data monitoring, including trade data, improve the BCF population in the wild, including restocking and habitat rehabilitations, protect BCF habitats under both district MPAs, establish and strengthen agriculture and breeding at community level, formulate regulation on BCF catch and trade, and increase local capacity to manage BCF. Madam, even before EU submitted the proposal, Indonesia was also considering giving protection status for this species under national legislation in 2011. This proved that Indonesia is one step ahead to go further with stricter domestic measures to conserve our species. However, the Indonesian scientific authority recommend that BCF did not meet protected criteria as it has been spreading in many locations outside Banggai Islands. Very easy to populate and adapt to new environment and require low technology and skill to culture. During the times survey showed that BCF population more than 1.5 million in Banggai itself, not counting the population outside Banggai Island. Regarding EU's proposal to leave BCF Appendix II, Indonesia opposed the proposal. Indonesia once again appreciates EU concern. Now being spread in natural habitat outside Banggai archipelago. Since the data only focus in Banggai Island, it missed the whole population throughout Indonesia. Thus, it is not deserved to be considered in the inclusion on CITES Appendix II. If AO report highlighted there is insufficiency data using plenty of anecdotal and qualitative data when discussing BCF. Madam Chair, nevertheless, Indonesia considers that listing BCF Appendix II is not the only or the best way to conserve this species. BCF endemic and its issues are more appropriate to be addressed through local management measures. Indonesia would like to use this BCF as a momentum for national and local stakeholders to work together and prove that we can manage our endemic and iconic species by ourselves. Strengthening and improving the national and local capacity in wildlife species is one of the most important agendas right now in Indonesia. The most priority action to do right implementation of BCF National Plan of Action. BCF National Plan of Action has conferred biology, ecology, and socio-economic aspect of BCF conservation and sustainable harvest. This plan of action will be legalized with the ministerial decree to ensure the support from national and local government, including budget requirement. In this case, Indonesia welcome for any direct support and collaboration. Moreover, if during the 2 years of BCF plan of action implementation, population does not show a recovery trend, Indonesia has prepared for strong measures such as giving protection status for BCF under regulation or moratorium of export. As a closing, let me reiterate Indonesian position that we share the concern on the importance of conserving Banggai cardinals. We would like to hear the consistency of EU in their intention to save BCF, and therefore, whatever the result of this deliberation will not change EU's goal to conserve this species. Only by showing its consistency, the work with this important conference will appreciate EU's effort in helping Indonesia to sustainably manage Banggai and not only by any other motives. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Indonesia. I will allow 2 short interventions from the States of America, followed by Kuwait, and then I will return to the European Union to react to the intervention from Indonesia. So, United States of America first.
Thank you. The United States is a major importer of this fish, and as was mentioned, we first brought this species proposal to COP in 2007. At that time, we were convinced that the National Conservation Management Plan presented by Indonesia would help stem the decline of this species. However, since then, the national conservation measures seem to be insufficient, and CITES regulation would complement the measures that are in place by Indonesia, and therefore we support this proposal. We would note that the FAO Expert Advisory Panel in the 9 years, the first evaluation has found now that local action has occurred at 5 sites across the Banggai archipelago, with an additional 7 species where there are declines in abundance, and therefore feel it meets the criteria very strongly. We would hope that the CITES regulation could complement their national action plan, and we stand willing to help Indonesia in doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, United States of America. I will give the floor now to Kuwait.
Thank you, Chair. Kuwait shared the concern that's mentioned by Indonesia, which is the range state for this species. Therefore, we would like to oppose this proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Kuwait. As I said, I would like the European Union to react to Indonesia. European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank all delegations for their comments, in particular Indonesia for the information shared in relation to the status of the species. The EU and its member states strongly believe that all information available demonstrate that the species meets the criteria for inclusion in Appendix II, and that inclusion in CITES will benefit the conservation of the species. We stand therefore ready to cooperate with Indonesia in relation to the management of the species and provide our support to ensure the conservation of this endangered species. Madam Chair, as one of the main markets for these species, the main objective of the EU and its member states is that the decision that will be adopted by CITES COP17 enables to achieve tangible benefits for the conservation of the Bangkok cardinal fish. It is therefore in a constructive spirit that we would be ready to propose to Indonesia the adoption by COP17 of a set of decisions to allow for the making of concrete progress in relation to the management of the species COP18. Such decisions would in particular include the realization of a study to assess the impact of national trade on the conservation status of Bangkok cardinal fish, and to advise on suitable conservation and management measures, and the Animals Committee to make recommendations by 18. Visions would also invite Indonesia to implement management measures to ensure the sustainability of international trade with Bangkok cardinal fish, and enable Indonesia to obtain additional support, in particular from the EU, in implementing such measures. Be pleased to read out the decisions that we are proposing in relation to this species. If these decisions be adopted by COP17, we would be ready to consider withdrawing our proposal to include the species in Appendix II. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, European Union. I think it is important that you read these draft decisions. I recognise it's quite late in the day to be introducing draft decisions, and then I will come to Indonesia, noting that there is a proposal to consider withdrawing the proposal subject to the adoption of these draft decisions. So please go ahead, European Union, and read these.
Thank you, Chair. First decision to Indonesia, 17x1. Indonesia should implement conservation and management measures to ensure the sustainability of international trade in Pterapogon cauderni and report progress on these measures to the Animals Committee at its 30th meeting. Second decision, directed to the Secretariat, 17x2. Subject to external funding, the Secretariat shall commission a study to assess the impact of international trade on the conservation status of Pterapogon cauderni, to advise on suitable conservation and management measures as appropriate. Third decision also directs the Secretariat, 17x3. Shall share the results of the study as referred to under decision 17x2 with the Animals Committee at its 30th meeting. Fourth decision, directed to the Animals Committee, 17x4. The Animals Committee shall, at its 30th meeting, review the progress report submitted by Indonesia as referred to under decision 17x1, as well as the results of the study as referred to under decision 17x2, and make its recommendations to the 18th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. And then the final draft decision, which is directed to donor parties and other relevant organizations would read as follows. 17(5). Donor parties and other relevant organs, including FAO, are invited and encouraged to provide support to Indonesia and the Secretariat for the purpose of implementing decisions 17X1 to 17X3. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Union. I'm going back to Indonesia for a reaction to this set of draft decisions. So, Indonesia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for EU concern and consistency. Indonesia will adopt the draft proposed by EU and will report the progress to the 30th Animal Committee meetings. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Indonesia. And I think with the agreement of Indonesia as the only range state for this species, that I am assuming that we will have a consensus to the agreement of these draft decisions. And if you clear my screen. Okay, thank you very much. And I would ask anyone who is opposed to the agreement of these draft decisions to indicate so now. Otherwise, I'm assuming we have consensus. I see Brazil.
Thank you, Chair. We will not block the consensus on this, but we're uncomfortable of having decision introduced at 7:30. I think this information, the communication can be a bit improved. If Indonesia is happy with this decision, we'll be happy to go with it. But we would prefer that this information be made available to parties ahead of time so we can examine them. Thank you. We will not block the consensus on this.
Okay, thank you very much, Brazil. And I would agree that the jury is not ideal, but obviously we get to the agenda items when we can, and a very full agenda. And again, we still have a number of items to get through. So again, I'm going to seek the indulgence of the interpreter one last time. Hang on for the final half hour. This is the absolute limit now.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm extremely grateful. So with that, we are agreeing these draft decisions of the European Union as an alternative to the proposal 46. Oh, sorry, yeah, proposal 46 is withdrawn because of these draft decisions. Okay, so thank you. We now, when I do a count, I think we have nearly 11 proposals still to get through, and we only have half an hour left, maximum. So unfortunately, I don't mean any disrespect to any of the proponents or those who have prepared these proposals, but I think that we don't have time to introduce these. They have all been available on the CITES website for a long time, and I'm sure that all the parties have read them. I don't propose to introduce them. What I propose to do is to go down through them, state what they are, and then ask if there is anyone opposed to the proposal, and hopefully we'll be able to move quickly through them. And I do apologise. I don't mean any disrespect to the proponents. So we start with Proposal 47, which is a proposal from Mexico to include Holocanthus clarionensis in Appendix II. So I'll open the floor if there are any objections to this proposal. Please indicate so now. I see no objections, so conclude. So now I'm a little late, but Vietnam, please.
Yeah, thank you. The number of anglerfish species in the current international trade, it is likely that future trade management of all angelfish may become overly complicated if this species is listed in Appendix II. This species is only available in one island in Mexico, and information on the trade of this species in other regions in the world is very limited. In addition, the sharp decline in the stock of this species is only reported in one island of Mexico, and information on the population of this species in other countries is needed before including this species in the Appendix II. NAM supports the recommendation from the Secretariat that this proposal be rejected.
Thank you, Vietnam. I also see Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also support the intervention made by Vietnam. FAO expert concluded that this proposal doesn't meet the criteria saying that there is no evidence indicating a decline of resources. And also the Secretariat that this proposal should be rejected. And also Secretariat recommended that Mexico should list this species in CITES Appendix 3. So we strongly recommend Mexico to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Japan. And I will now give Mexico an opportunity. I don't see anyone else calling for the floor, so I will give Mexico an opportunity to respond. Mexico, but please, don't introduce their whole proposal, but just to respond to the interventions. Thank you.
Sí, señora presidenta, muchas gracias por la oportunidad. Solamente para reiterar la decisión de México. El pez es endémica de México. Entonces, eso es lo que nos hace proponer que se suba al apéndice 2 por una parte. Por otra parte, hemos tenido estudios específicos sobre esta especie y esos estudios han demostrado la declinación de este pez en los últimos años. De acuerdo a ciertos criterios, nos pueden decir que si no tomamos acciones muy importantes, porque el objeto de la disminución de es el comercio internacional, se aprovecha y se extrae el 90%, y para comercio internacional el 95%. Es decir, el impacto sobre esta especie es comercio internacional. Por eso para nosotros es importante aplicar el principio precautorio y enfatizando que es una especie endémica de México. Por lo tanto, insistimos en proponerlo en el. Gracias.
Thank you very much. As I see, Vietnam and Japan are the only parties speaking against. I'm going to go back to them and ask the pair to block the consensus. So I will go to Vietnam first.
Yeah, we'd like to block the consensus.
Okay, well then I think we need to go to a vote. I'm sorry we can't have more discussion on this. So, yeah. Okay, so prepare yourselves for a vote on this proposal. And for the purposes of the technician, this is a vote on proposal number 47. The European Union is voting as a party. The voting type is by a normal vote. Since this is a vote on a proposal for amendment of Appendix 1 or 2, the decision will be adopted by a 2/3 majority. So to be clear, a yes vote means you are in support of the inclusion of Holocanthus clarionensis in Appendix 2. And if you are against, you are not in support of the inclusion of this species too. Okay, just to clarify, we are asking just so there is no confusion over the European Union's vote, we are asking them to use a ballot paper for all votes, so they will not be included in this vote either, although it is a normal vote. I hope that's clear. So if the technicians can tell me if we are ready to go to a vote. Thank you very much. So now we will have 30 seconds to register your vote. It's open now. Okay, apologies, it's late in the day. It takes a little bit longer to do the maths here. So I can announce the result and then I will display it shortly. But it is, including the European Union's 28 votes, it is yes 69, abstentions 15, noes 21, which is 75% of the votes. So the proposal is carried. It is agreed. Thank you. We now move on to proposal number 48, which is the proposed inclusion of the family Nautilidae in Appendix 2. And again, I would suggest that we do not introduce this document, as we have had access to the document for a long time. But I will ask if there is anyone who wants to speak against this proposal to indicate so now. One party, Cambodia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Taking into account the result from FAO Expert Advisory Panel Assessment Report that identify impact to the rural fisher community, carrier manufacturer, and trader, if the Nautilidae species were listed in Appendix 2, particularly the use of shell freshwater taken fundamentally from the natural mortality is thought to have minimal impact on the wild Nautilidae population. However, the concerned party that fishing Nautilidae family need to strengthen the implementation of management measures to control their fishing capacity while ensure the sustainable utilization of the species rather than listing the species into the appendix, which will impact to the small-scale livelihood. Cambodian therefore oppose this proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Cambodia, is there anyone else opposing? I'm seeing no request for the floor, so I have to go back to Cambodia and ask if you are intending to block the consensus on this?
Yes, Madam Chair, we will block.
Okay, Cambodia, then you're forcing us to go to a vote on this. So everyone prepare yourself for another vote. So we have proposal 48, and again, can I ask the European Union to register their vote on the ballot paper? So for the technicians, this is a vote on proposal number 48. European Union and its member states are not voting. The voting type is by a normal vote, and since it's a vote on a proposal for amendment of the appendices, the decision will be adopted by 2/3 majority. So a yes vote is for the inclusion of the family Nautilidae in Appendix 2, and a no vote is against of the family Nautilidae in Appendix 2. And if you can abstain. So if the technicians can tell when they are ready to the vote. Thank you very much. So everyone, you have 30 seconds to register your vote, and the vote is open now. So I can confirm the votes now. we have in favour 84, including abstentions 10 and noes 9. So this was accepted even without the EU's votes. Okay, so we now move on to proposal. Well, actually, maybe you want to. Can you display that on the screen? I think I forgot to do that the last time, please, if it's not too late, so people believe me. Oh, you can see it now. Okay. So we now move on to proposal number 49, which is the proposal from Cuba for the inclusion of the genus Polymeta in Appendix 1. So again, we will do this the same way. If there is anyone who would like to speak in opposition of this proposal, please indicate so now. I see no requests for the floor, so I will conclude that we would agree or recommend the inclusion of the genus Polymeta in Appendix 1 by consensus. Okay, so that's finished and the Cuban landscape. So we will do the we have some outstanding proposals there. And I would pose to proposal 34. And this is the proposal to include Atheris. Well, it gets so dark at night, I can't read this anymore. Let's go for the names easier. Ash's voter in Appendix 2. So if there's any party who wishes to speak against this proposal, please indicate. I see no requests for the floor. So we conclude that is the recommendation from this committee that the Ash's bush viper, Atheris desexi, be included in Appendix 2 by consensus. So the next proposal is the other viper. This is Kenya horn viper, Worthingtoni, in Appendix 2. So if there's anyone who would like to speak against this proposal, could they please indicate so now? Again, I see no request for the floor. My conclusion, the from this committee, is that Bitis Worthingtoni be included in Appendix by consensus. Thank you very much. That now leads us on to proposal 36, which is the inclusion of a number of species from the family Trionychidae in Appendix 2. So again, I would ask if there are any parties who would wish in opposition to oppose this proposal, could they indicate so now? I see no request. So again, it is my conclusion that this committee recommends the inclusion of the 6 species in proposal 36 into Appendix 2. So these are the soft-shell turtles. And again, this is by consensus. So now we are on to the amendments to proposal 37, which is a proposal to transfer Discophus amboginii, tomato frog, I'm really tired now, to transfer it from Appendix 1 to Appendix 2. So again, if there's anyone who would like to speak against this proposal, please indicate so. Again, I see no floor, so it is my conclusion that recommendation from this committee to include the Discophus tomato frog, I give up. Transferred from Appendix 1 to Appendix 2 by consensus. So we now move on to proposal number 38, and this is the proposal to include Discophus guenetae, the false tomato frog, and the I can't even read the English anymore. This Insula. Oh, yeah, I can. actually read the Latin one this time, Discophus insularis, to include these two species in Appendix 2. So again, if there's anyone who would like to speak against these proposals, could they indicate so now? I see no requests for the floor, so it is my conclusion that this committee is recommending that Proposal 38 be adopted. That's a lot quicker. By consensus. We're on to Proposal 39, which is frogs. We have 3 species from Madagascar, and the proposal is to include these in Appendix 2. So again, if there's anyone who would like to speak against these proposals, could they indicate so now? I see Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for this proposal, but I'm not sure this species is the situation of the species is sorry for meets the criteria. So yeah, meets the criteria of Appendix 2 or not. We are not, and we would like to ask how is the relation with the country Madagascar. We would like to ask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Japan. I think if Madagascar here and would like to Japan, Madagascar, you have the.
Oui, on souhaite répondre au Japon.
Yes, we'd like to reply.
Pour ces 3 espèces, auparavant, donc, il est inclus dans une seule espèce. Et à cause de cela, donc, il y a une confusion pour les 3 et tout pour les non-initiés. Parce qu'il faudrait dire qu'une espèce est vraiment vulnérable. Donc, premièrement, il y a un chevauchement sur la distribution des espèces. Donc, en plus de ça, la morphologie, donc, comme j'ai dit tout à l'heure, est la même. Donc, c'est difficile pour bien les différencier. C'est pourquoi que Madagascar le propose ensemble pour que, par exemple, le scaphe frêne bourboure ne soit pas exploité. Madame la Présidente.
Exploited unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madagascar. I'd like to ask if there are other parties who would like to support Japan's opposition to this proposal, if they could indicate so now. So I'm not seeing any other on the floor, so I must come back to Japan and if you are to block the consensus on this.
We don't to block the consensus. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Japan. And so with that, it is our conclusion that Proposal 39 is accepted. We recommend it for adoption. That brings us on to, we've only 2 more to go. Proposal 40, which is the Titicaca water frog, and proposed including in Appendix 1. And I would ask if there is a party who would like to speak against this proposal to indicate so now. I see Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, we are not sure the situation of this meets the criteria of listing in Appendix 2. Appendix 1. We would like to ask the opinion from the country about listing in Appendix 2. Why Appendix 1 is needed? Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. That there are 2 proponents for this proposal, so I don't know if Via or Peru would like to respond to Japan, if one of them could indicate. I see Peru. Peru, you have the floor.
Buenas noches.
Good evening,
Presidenta.
Madam.
Un momento, por favor.
Just one moment, please.
Nosotros consideramos que esta especie
that this
es una especie con
species
características únicas,
unique in its characteristics of its large size and its 100% aquatic habitat and the altitude at which it lives, and it is fundamental for the maintenance of the environmental balance in the area of Lake Titicaca. There's been a loss in the population over the last 3 generations, and at a national level we have set out standards to ban the trade extraction of this species with sanctions, and there is evidence
of its use on an international level. It is also foreseen that we'll set out a national plan for conservation between Peru and Bolivia, and we would invite parties to support us. But we do consider that it is qualified for listing 1 because of the level of threat to the population, and it is 80%. Thank you. Decline.
Thank you, Peru, and I briefly give the floor to Bolivia.
Así es, en acuerdo con Perú, es un trabajo una propuesta que se ha trabajado con el Perú en ambos países. Esta especie solamente habita el lago Titicaca y está altamente amenazada, en peligro crítico en ambos países, y nos va mucho su conservación, y proponer el apéndice 1 sería una solución para que esta especie siga viviendo y habitando el lago Titicaca, el más alto del mundo.
Thank you, Olivia. I think at this point I would have to ask if there is another party who would support Japan's opposition to this proposal. Please indicate so. I see no other party calling for the floor, so again I must ask Japan if you are intending to block the consensus.
We won't block. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much, Japan. And with that confirmation, it is my conclusion that the recommendation of this committee is that the Titicaca water frog, I really can't speak anymore. We recommend inclusion of the Titicaca water frog in Appendix 1, and this was agreed by consensus. So we are down to the last one, which is the Hong Kong warty newt. This is proposal 41, and its proposed inclusion in Appendix 2. So if there is any party who would like to speak against this proposal, please indicate so now. I see no request on the floor, so the recommendation from this committee is for the inclusion of the Hong Kong warty newt in Appendix 2. By consensus. So unbelievably, that finishes all of the proposals. We can admit we hit some bumps in the road, but we've travelled the road together, and somehow or other we have arrived at our destination. So thank you all for your participation and your cooperation. And yes, we're not quite finished yet, just the Secretariat has an announcement to make about the earlier voting. We said we would come back and clarify on this. Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, several parties asked us to check the vote and whether or not the EU votes had been counted for in previous votes of Committee 1. We have worked with the technicians to check all previous votes, and I can advise as follows, and this is an agreed position between the technicians and the Secretariat. There was a vote on Wednesday the 28th on Proposal 11, and we have checked that, and the EU 28 votes were counted correctly. On the Wednesday the 28th on Proposal 50, there was a vote, and the 28 votes of the European Union were correctly. On Thursday the 20th, there was a vote on Proposal 18, and the vote of the European Union, 28 member states, was voted correctly. They were all open votes, so we have checked the record directly. On Sunday the 3rd of October, there was a secret ballot on the African grey parrot. As it was a secret ballot, there is no record kept of the voting. There were, however, 135 votes cast. At that time, there were 148 parties that had been, whose credentials had been accepted, and we are of the view that the 28 votes was accurately counted. We had the vote today on Proposal 16 on the African elephant. That was what indicated difficulty today. This difficulty was not experienced on any other day, but we experienced it today. As indicated for Proposal 16, this was an vote. The European Union vote was only counted as 1 and not 28, so it was 27 short. Given that this European Union voted this proposal and the proposal was rejected, it increases the size of the number of parties that vote against the proposal, so it does not change the result. been 2 secret ballots today on Proposal 14 and Proposal 15. Having reviewed, these were both secret ballots, so there is no record of the vote. However, there were 9 votes cast for Proposal 14, 112 cast for Proposal 15, Proposal 16 was 118. Talking to the technicians, we with respect to the European Union was reflected in the votes, the secret ballot votes on Proposals 14 and 15. It only showed 1 vote for the European Union. Again, the European Union voted against those 2 proposals. We would add 27 to the number of votes cast against in both cases, change the result. Chair, since then we have been proceeding in the way in which the COP recommended, whereby the European Union has not been exercising a vote with all of the ballots, and that's the way in which we have proceeded. I don't think we need to go through them. If I could advise the committee that we have been working together with the technicians this afternoon after Committee 2 concluded its business. Our staff were in there with the technicians and we were testing the system in Committee 2 and the technicians were able to identify the anomaly. They have now corrected that anomaly in Committee 2 and tested it there. I believe that they will be in a position to correct the anomaly overnight in Committee 1, which will be plenary tomorrow. So we believe that as of tomorrow, the occurred today, with respect to the voting of the European Union, will have been corrected. Chair, we are grateful for everybody's understanding and cooperation in allowing us to proceed. And floor, can we express our deep thanks to you? You've been truly outstanding, Chair, and very much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Secretariat, and thank you all again for your in cooperation in this complicated voting system that we had today. And while I do have the floor, I just wanted to take a couple of moments to thanks. First of all, to South Africa, the government of South Africa, and the people of South Africa. They have given us a fantastic welcome and made us all feel in which they do on the first day. I would also tell thanks to the interpreters and to the rapporteurs. I think they've done a fantastic job and they have accommodated us when we needed them most. And also to the technical staff and the staff of the Convention Centre. I think they've all done a wonderful job too. And I want to, I want to pay thanks to my government and my department for the support I needed and allowed to undertake the role of chair at this meeting. It has been an honour for me. Oh, I'm getting a lump in my throat. Sorry. And last of all, I want to... But second last, I should say, I'll thank all Secretariat staff. I think you have no idea of the work that goes on behind the scenes, and it has been you've been a real support to me, so couldn't have done it without you, so thank you. And my last, Secretariat staff, of course, yes. Thank you. And last of all, to all of you, you all conducted yourself in an extremely courteous, polite, and it has just been a joy to watch you all at work and all the working groups. Everything that came back was agreed by consensus, and I think that's a phenomenal thing. So thank you.
But you can come anyway.
Sorry?
But Johan says you can come anyway.
Right. In theory, it tells me how much I've walked. So now that's only half of what I should do in a day. And now it's telling me the time.